just thought maybe as part of the introductory video of our hopeful trip to Scotland, I'd just give a few tips, I guess, to anybody that's thinking about doing this as to how I go about it. I'm not saying that my way is the best way. I'm sure there are much better ways out there. But the way I start planning the trip is basically I do a spreadsheet. And as I'm doing the spreadsheet, what I do is, say we're going to Indonesia. I'll look at different holidays to Indonesia, different tours to Indonesia. And from that, you kind of get an idea of some of the main places that you might want to go to. And of course, you're prepared to change as the trip goes on, but it at least gives you an idea of what you don't want to miss. Then I do use Google Maps, and I plan different distances that we're going to have to cover between places that we will want to go. And I try and split it up into reasonable days based on what I know we're likely to be able to do. I then put little marks in the map in Google Maps, and I work my way along piece by piece until eventually you get an entire trip. And it gives you an idea, most importantly, of the timing, when you're going to be in a country. So for example, we'll be doing a service stop in Malaysia. Seems to be the most sensible place in terms of garages that are available and getting the spare parts we want. We'll then do one in Almaty, because I know there's a place there that Jim and I used. And that's probably enough service trips along the way, apart from maybe minor things like oil changes that we plan to do. Tyre changes, of course, we've got to plan. And by doing the distances, you get a good idea of where you're going to want to stop, or where there's a possibility of you getting tyres, getting your chain maintained, replaced perhaps. So that's the trip. You do this rough schedule. I then fed the spreadsheets into ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, and I just basically asked them what they thought, what the visa situation was like, what we needed for the bikes, insurances. And from that, all three, you come up with a pretty good idea, but you certainly can't trust ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini. They get wrong. For example, visas for Indonesia, it's a long way in Indonesia. It was saying that 1 month visa on arrival, and that we should get a cultural visa or something like that in order to stay longer. And I went to the Indonesian website, and they do 2 month visas as long as we apply before we go there. So when you're using these these AI programs, they're not nowhere near 100% correct. But it certainly gives you more ideas. It tells you, what if you took this route instead, you would see this. And then I basically cut and paste that into a Word document. And then I put that Word document into DeepSeek, the Chinese one, just to double check what I did there as well. And even though it's not going to be perfect, it's pretty close to what we're going to do and what we need to do. Because my bike is a 2017 V-Strom with 45,000 kilometers on it, I'm going to need to make sure that my bike is prepared for more going wrong with it than Alina's brand new V-Strom. And for that, again, I used ChatGPT and Gemini and said, what's likely to go wrong with a bike that age, and it comes out with different recommendations as to what you should change, what spares you should take. In the end, the spares that I'm going to take are just ones that are going to stop us. So one weakness in the V-Strom, for example, is the stator. I didn't even know what a stator was. which can go between 70 and 80,000 kilometres, which is over, the bike will be over that by the time we get to Scotland. But it's not going to stop us moving. We can still push start the bike, and there's no point in carrying these extras along. I am going to carry spare oil filters and spark plugs and brake pads, so that if the garage we go to for our service doesn't have them, we've got them. The idea is not that I'm going to do it myself, even though I did take the tank off, change the spark plugs and the air filter, because I thought it was good to know what to do, rather than doing it at the side of the road. But the intention is to get professionals to do it, not me. But if the professionals don't have the parts, then we'll have the basic parts that we'll need for the garage to use, to save us having to wait around for them to get the parts for us. And the other thing Jim and I did when we did the Mongolia trip was we contacted garages up front, and we kind of arranged beforehand, say that we're coming, we've got these V-Stroms and we want a service, so they can be prepared. And tool-wise, by taking the bike apart, I pretty much learned the tools that I'm going to need. I tried to minimise the tools I took, but in the end, for all the extra weight, I decided, why not? Better safe than sorry. I think I've decided I'm not going to take inner tubes, which I could live to regret. We're taking a puncture repair kit. But the truth is, if we get a puncture, I can't see any situation where I'm going to manage to take that back wheel off and the front wheel off and get the tyre off and use the tyre levers to get it off. So I'm seriously thinking about just not taking that. And as well as that, I've got a pre-departure checklist for what we need to take, medical kit and things like that. Another useful place to go to is Horizons Unlimited, and you get these different overland motorcycle groups. For the V-Strom, I'm part of some V-Strom groups, and everyone's really keen to help. It's like they can't wait to help you if you've got any questions. And from Horizons Unlimited, I got the name of companies that could organise our freight from Darwin to Dili. We, I think, pretty much know what we're doing all the way up to Malaysia. But then I don't see there's any point in doing too much detail until we get to closer to the time that we get to these countries. I've found a company that does the Lao China part. I have found a company that'll do the Bhutan part if we need it. I know what the requirements are in Thailand, which is a bit of a pain in the butt because they charge $800 per month for an overseas vehicle to be in the country. That kind of spoils it for us. We're going to end up having at least 2 months to kill because we really don't want to get to the Chinese border until April. There's no point in going into Tibet until April, and even then it's going to be pretty cold. But it's by doing this spreadsheet that you find these things out. And the original plan was to go Myanmar, India, that border is closed, so that means that 2 months it's going to be too cold to get into Nepal, Tibet, where we could have been just hanging around in India somewhere on the motorbikes, but that's no longer possible. Anyway, if I can think of something else, I'll do another little bit. Hopefully, somebody out there somewhere is going to be wanting to do